Over 6 million children in the United States between the ages of 2 and 17 have been diagnosed with ADHD. That's almost 10% of the population, and that's not even including those who haven't been diagnosed yet. If you're worried that your child might be showing signs of ADHD, stick around for today's very important video on just 7 steps. Hi, I'm Robert Schramm, a behavior analyst, education specialist, author, and dad. And each week I share strategies to help you find the path to real progress for your kids who may be struggling. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, do so now to stay updated with all of my new videos and hit that notification bell too. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and ADHD in kids is one of the most common neurological disorders. According to the CDC, signs and symptoms of ADHD in kids include daydreaming more than is typical, forgetting or losing things more than is typical, squirming or fidgeting a lot, talking too much, making careless mistakes, or taking unnecessary risks. Also having a hard time resisting temptations, having trouble taking turns, and having difficulty getting along with others. Now, ADHD has two forms: the predominantly inattentive type, which is characterized by the less movement-based symptoms, and the predominantly hyperactive impulsive type, which is characterized by the more movement-based symptoms. If a child is diagnosed with ADHD, they may fall under either type, but it doesn't mean that they may not have symptoms of both. And don't forget, children may show some symptoms like talking too much or making careless mistakes, but it doesn't mean that they're diagnosable as having ADHD. There are several ways that ADHD in kids is generally addressed, and it's usually with some combination of medication and behavioral therapy. Medication that is designed to work on the chemistry of the brain, allowing it to tamp down impulsivity and bring about a more calm and focused body to work with. And behavioral education to help support motivation, to proper attention and effort on important tasks, as well as practice with mindfulness and relaxation strategies. The medications are generally not recommended for children younger than 6 years of age, but behavioral education, particularly that which involves parent training, is recommended as early as possible. And once a child turns 6 or later, depending on the severity of the symptoms, a doctor may prescribe medications such as Adderall, Concerta, Avecchio, Focalin, Culavant, Ritalin or Strattera, and even Vyvanse. And these medications each have a set of expected benefits. But those benefits need to be demonstrated in the individual to determine if the medication is appropriate. And you also have to consider the many side effects that can come from these medications. Stimulant medications can cause appetite suppression and weight loss, and some can also cause headaches and trouble falling asleep. And although it's much less common, some medications have caused some children to experience visual or tactile hallucinations or even to develop a tic. And it's generally believed, however, that most of these side effects can be remedied by either or even removed altogether by changing the dose or the schedule of the medication or trying a different medication. Some of the problems beyond side effects associated with medications for children include the length of time that the medications will actually last, how they affect sleep cycles, when they are on and when they're not on, missed doses, and for some kids, the inability to take pills. There are a lot of reasons why it might be a good idea for a family to try medications for their child with ADHD, and there may be some reasons why it might not make sense. Having in-depth, frank conversations with your medical professionals, both before deciding to try a medication and throughout the process of monitoring to see if that drug is being effective, is really important. Stimulants tend to work almost immediately, where non-stimulants may take time to build up before you're going to see the expected results. So be sure you have this worked out with your doctors so that you know what to look for and how long it should take to take effect. Now, I've met many families who've chosen to avoid the medicine route for their children, and I have no intention of judging the decisions any family may make in how they work to help their children to their best lives. And whether or not you choose to go the medicine route or not, you still will need to have some form of behavioral intervention and preferably training for you as a parent to help your child to have their best opportunity to overcome the effects that ADHD can have on their learning, on their behavior, and on their social skills. So before addressing the symptoms of ADHD with behavioral interventions, it is important to discuss what those symptoms really are and how they may affect the child. Now, it is a common misconception that children with ADHD do not have the ability to maintain attention to things in their environment. But I found in my work that it is more related to motivation than actual ability. Although it is true that you might see a child with ADHD lose attention to a task frequently, this is only when the task itself is just not that strong of an interest or motivation. And this leaves the child primed for distraction. However, when properly motivated, children with ADHD can be quite intent on maintaining their attention for even long periods of time. And this is why you would often see kids with ADHD able to maintain long activities of drawing or video game playing, while they might find it very hard to maintain concentration on less preferred tasks like schoolwork or chores. As motivation is such an important aspect in a child's ability to maintain attention to task, then it becomes increasingly important to factor a child's interests into their daily activities and to use strong motivational tools when teaching them. Now, another symptom of the hyperactivity impulsivity type of ADHD is the need for almost constant movement. And children with this form of ADHD will find it very hard to sit still for longer periods of time. And to help with this, allowing the child to have frequent movement breaks, letting them use a ball for a chair, or other accommodations to help them feel vestibular feedback on a regular basis can be very helpful for them. When applying behavioral interventions to help children with ADHD, it is important to do some basic work in identifying the ways that the child's inattention, hyperactivity, and/or impulsivity is negatively impacting their lives. You may need to make a list of the areas of concern and then prioritize which of these areas would make the most sense to address first. It may be helpful to include the child in these discussions, as well as, of course, the parents and teachers working with that child daily. Now, once you have a list of targets that you would like to address, finding ways to consistently motivate and then reinforce better behavior related to those issues can create new skills and habits that allow a child to overcome some of the negative consequences of the disorder. In addition to addressing behavior in specific areas, it might also become a focus to accommodate a child who struggles. Can things like extra time or a quiet space or other accommodations make their ability to find success more likely? The bottom line is that however a child is being affected by ADHD, it is incumbent on the team of adults supporting them to consider all forms of potential support. Take into consideration the child's inability to currently control the behavior we are seeing, and to use medical and/or behavioral supports to help them overcome the challenges that can come with either form of ADHD. Now, if you feel that a child in your life is demonstrating symptoms that would be ADHD-like, you might want to know how to best help them. So consider going to your local pediatrician and having them assessed for ADHD. Now, the way that ADHD is diagnosed is by comparing your child's behavior to a set of guidelines that is spelled out in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, otherwise known as the DSM 5th edition. Now, depending on the number and severity of symptoms, a child may or may not qualify as meeting the diagnostic criteria. But with or without a diagnosis, if a child is struggling with any of the symptoms, there are things that we can do to help. Now, if you are interested in learning more about how to work with a child who has ADHD, or are interested in the behavioral principles responsible for motivating and reinforcing better choice making in a child, check out my free workshop, How to Get Your Kids to Listen Without Raising Your Voice or Nagging. Now, the workshop is not specific to ADHD, but the three main topics covered are certainly important when working with a child with an ADHD diagnosis. The workshop can be found at just7steps.com/workshop, and it is available to you on demand for free. So check us out anytime. That's just7steps.com/workshop. And as you can tell, there are a lot of symptoms related to ADHD, and sensory issues and sensory processing disorders are often prevalent in children with ADHD too. But just because it's a symptom doesn't mean it's ADHD. Now, if your child is experiencing sensory issues, check out this video where I talk about how to handle sensory issues, and how it could also even be related to autism. Now, I'll catch you over there on that video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like bell to be sure to see all of my new content coming out weekly as well.